Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode on Maven Talks. I hope you are safe and healthy. Most of us, at least once in a lifetime, would have thought about starting something on our own, something new. It could be a startup, it could be a course, developing a new skill set. But the thing is that it's not about ideas, it's about execution. It's about making ideas happen. So we have amongst us Mr. Haresh Singh, a dynamic entrepreneur who turned his idea into a reality. And before I bring him onto the live, I'd like you to remind to subscribe to the YouTube channel and press the bell icon. So if you have any questions, you can also list them down in the window. Now I'll shift on to him. Yeah, you are live now.
Hi, Rakshit. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? How's your family and how's everyone at home?
Yeah, things are fine, and we had a couple of cases in our family, but thankfully they were not so severe, and things have improved since then. But I think the second wave was really scary for all of us.
Yeah, honestly, I was also COVID positive, but fortunately, no one like there weren't any complications at my home as well. So yeah.
All right,
So let's begin with a bit of your background.
all right. Okay, so I'll start from the start. I was born and brought up in Himachal till eighth grade. So studied in boys' school, ICSE board. And then eighth, my elder sister came to New Delhi, and that's when I followed her and studied in Delhi. I switched a lot of schools because my father's from civil services, so that meant moving across towns, every now and then. So I've changed about 11 or 12 schools through my entire school life. And yeah, in Delhi also, I changed school three times because we were coming and going, that way. And finally, I completed my 10th standard from Air Force Golden Jubilee and class 12th from DPS Harkipuram. And after that, obviously, I joined Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Engineering. Before that, briefly, I joined Pune University. And after college, I worked with a variety of profiles, both government, non-government. And then, yeah, here I am today, finally doing what I really wanted to since a long, long time.
So you have basically traveled a lot.
Yeah, happens. Some might call it travel. We call it struggle.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or what? When exactly did this idea came to your mind?
See, so this actually goes back to my childhood, and I don't think at that age I even knew what an entrepreneur means. But I think courtesy my dad and his job, I always saw him dealing with people all the time, solving problems for them, going in field, maybe at times, holding these small janta darbars. So each time I used to go out, I had a knack for just identifying problems that people are in general facing. And this might be something as simple as broken footpath and maybe waste management or maybe electricity issues to something a little more severe like gender based issues or maybe domestic violence and these kind of issues. So I was lucky enough that I was surrounded with the kind of people who not only helped me gain an insight into how these problems are identified and solved, but also I think later part of my education, see my engineering degree, okay, that is one part of it. But apart from that, I studied a lot of subjects myself, like public administration, anthropology, etc., so on and so forth. So this that actually helped me gain an insight into how the problems of the society are actually uh, how they have evolved over time and how the approach also needs to change. And at that point of time, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur in the conventional sense. I wanted to be a problem solver. But as I grew up and I realized that, okay, you have to pick your battles very carefully. And when I did identify certain problems that I want to solve, I faced a lot of roadblocks. Eventually, I narrowed down to UN SDGs, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And then I realized, okay, what should I do? Maybe, because by training, I'm an engineer. So should I get into the technology sector and maybe, use that technology to make people's life better or what? But I always had a knack for working in the field. But at the grassroots level, I don't think there was a very direct application of the technology without administrative help. So the first sector that I picked was skill development. And that is how it all began, trying to teach people relevant skills, for example, financial literacy, technical literacy, etc. So that's how the journey started. And yeah, now what is being called entrepreneur in the conventional sense, I evolved into that slowly.
So, like you were always an entrepreneur even before you heard the word entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think we're all managers in our own capacities. Look, for example, our mothers, right? They're managing the household, they're managing the kitchen, they're managing their own jobs if they're working, they're managing a lot of relations, right? So that people management, I always saw, and more so because I had a decent exposure to public life, courtesy my father and mother, both of them working with government in different capacities. So I always had a lot of public exposure and exposure to these kind of problems at the grassroots level. So my natural knack was to just go out and solve them with one or the other way. And I somehow always had a dislike for red tapeism and bureaucratic delays right from childhood. So that's why I chose the alternate path to go this way.
Like since you're also business development consultant and you actually come from an engineering background and being a business development consultant, being basically an expert in a different field, how did you manage to learn all that? Like, did you just picked up any random courses? Like, from where did that acumen, that strong acumen of business came?
See, it has to do with it's a lot of it had to do with the kind of profiles I started into and the kind of exposure I got from school onwards. So being a part of moot court or being a part of these debating societies, etc. So what actually started as public speaking actually turned into an exercise of helping people out here and there, networking for that, etc., etc. And a lot of things, when you enter the corporate world, ultimately it's about what difference you make to the revenue, right? So I was handpicked into the business team way back when I was starting as an intern at Geo. So at that moment, that change happened from technical to managerial. I was taught a lot of things. I was sent on the field. So a lot of it is practical experience. A lot of it is gained from whatever training they gave me, and from there slowly but surely I kept on learning about business development. Right now also, in fact, the company that I'm working with, so it's a very exciting time for that company because they're planning to expand into South Asia. And this is the kind of company, they're working with very exciting technologies like blockchain, internet of things, machine learning, etc. All of, as an engineer you're aware of it, but the kind of impact that they can make through their technology in the lives of people. So it's working on that, and that is where I think both my goals are aligned when I work with them. So yeah, I get a job, I get to use my expertise, but at the same time the larger goal that I want to serve, so that's also being taken care of.
Okay, and you were talking about UN SDGs. So relating to that, like I'll just come on to uLaunch. So what does exactly uLaunch do, and what was the inspiration behind starting it?
All right, see, uLaunch is actually it's actually a very long story, but I'll just sum it up that when I started working in skill development sector on the field, so what happened is that a lot of things that I used to take for granted were news for these people, like something as simple as their basic rights people are not aware of. So if you're not aware of your basic rights, you think being exploited is not a wrong thing that's happening to you, right? तो इसीलिए मुझे लगा कि when I went to the ground level and उन लोगों से interact किया, I realized that rather than aiming for something hi-fi, let's start from the start. Let's start from the root cause, and root cause is ignorance and lack of education. Now here I don't mean literacy. Literate बहुत है इंडिया में, सबके हाथ में फोन होता है, everybody has a smartphone, everybody is using god knows what all, but education बहुत जरूरी है. For example, it's embarrassing, but I think financial literacy के मामले में till I think high school even I knew nothing. Each time I used to go to banks, I used to embarrass myself and come back. That's all. And so yeah, this is how it all started. And while I interacting with people, this uh, this movement, I never call uLaunch as a organization, I rather call it a movement. So I realized that the UN SDGs, the 17 goals with their 269 targets, are all encompassing. And from there I realized that okay, maybe the messaging needs to go forward. So while you launch, as a definition is a media house, but what it tries to do is that we try to collaborate, we try to cover those stories which are making a difference, and not only cover those stories, but we also try to propel them. So we're collaborating with almost all the firms that we have covered in some capacity or the other, and we're trying to increase their impact on ground that way.
Okay. Yeah, like that's an amazing point. Uh, whenever we basically try to start anything new, it could be an organization, as you just said. The first few steps are the most difficult ones, because once you have first few steps, you just get into motion and things start falling into place. But that first step is like the biggest step that you need to take before you are starting anything.
Hmm.
So, what were the initial steps that you took while building your company? Like you had an idea, like what did you do next?
So the idea evolved over 3 years actually. 2017, I was sitting down with founders of some other similar online platforms, slightly commercial in nature, so I won't take their names. But I was just sitting down with them, and I think we were just discussing random things happening in the society and why they could not cover certain aspects of the particular issues, and why they had to focus on certain other aspects. And that's when I realized that. See, media, no matter how unbiased, has its limitations, because ultimately it's a business model which has to, generate revenues. And sometimes what happens is that the kind of revenue flow you have, that that sort of ties your hand about about the issues that you can speak up about. So I always thought of an alternate business model which would have nothing to do with any sort of inhibitions about speaking up. तो यू लॉन्च में वही किया कि अगर रेवेन्यू, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, यू लॉन्च का बिजनेस मॉडल इज वेरी डिफरेंट. इट डज नॉट अर्न अ सिंगल penny from what it actually does. Those are alternate things that sort of cross subsidize you launch. So that is why if I have to cover any particular story or take any particular side or put forward both sides and then decide or let people decide, so I won't have any limitations. I will never have my investors running after my life कि नहीं ये बोलना है ऐसा नहीं बोलना है. So yeah, that's one thing.
So, like, it isn't a non-profit, right?
So, see, essentially, what we are doing is that whatever money we generate, we actually spend it on training people. It goes to skill development. So it's not that on papers it's a non-profit. It is associated with a lot of non-profits, and it's a part of a consortium. But at the same time, whatever money comes goes to skill development. But yeah, the idea evolved over 3 years, and what started as a random thing, so the idea was to, okay, initially I was calling it the happy news, that let's just cover positive stories, let's just cover stories that will cheer people up instead of corruption and all this and all that. And then maybe I realized that, okay, maybe apart from the positivity, it also needs to bring forward different kind of messaging. So that messaging was the main issue that had to be worked upon. And over 3 years, with a lot of brainstorming with different people, this is the final product, UNSDG focused media platform.
Great. While you started it, were there any roadblocks? Like every business has some sort of roadblocks or challenges while going forward. So, were there any roadblocks while building a business?
Yes, several actually, because see, even if it sounds very fancy to become an entrepreneur, it's very fancy. It's the in thing. Let's be very honest, right? When you actually get on ground and start doing it, then it's a pain. And I had no formal training in that. So the first thing that I did was I had to join a few month. I think it's a 6 month course by Startup India. So I enrolled into that, where I could learn how to go about all the legal aspects, all the commercial aspects, how to prepare a business model, and why compliances are necessary, what kind of a firm I want to establish, private limited or LLP, etc. So I had to do my homework, and that sort of delayed things. But as an entrepreneur, you have that the textbook entrepreneur's optimism, and you want to get started immediately. You want to see action rather than ideation. And I think that is where I struggled the most, because at that particular point of time I was very impatient, and to give 6 months to a course and just sitting idle and just making notes and taking tests, etc. So that was very frustrating. Apart from that, I think raising money was another issue, because I was working. So this meant that putting my entire salary almost on a monthly basis. So if I calculated, I remember my first calculation didn't even allow me to file my taxes. So that had to be worked about. And then finding the people with the right set of mindset, and who want to work for the cause, because there's not much in it for them apart from the satisfaction of their work. It's not a lot of money, it's not a lot of it's a lot of struggle actually if they go on ground, and you have to convince a lot of people, you have to deal with administration. There's a lot of aspects that go in the background. जो आप एक स्टोरी देखते हो उसके पीछे क्या आता है वो nobody cares actually, but वो background ही ज़्यादा बड़ी story होती है than the story itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one thing. And I think one thing that I eventually learned was that I always thought 50% ideation, 50% action execution, but over time I learned that okay, that's a wrong thing to do probably. Now I focus 90% on ideation and 10% on execution, and that helped.
Great. And like coming onto the platform, say I am an entrepreneur with a startup, and I want my success story to basically feature on your platform. So what I can do for that?
Like, for you, it's always you just give me a call, I'll cover you anyway. But jokes apart. Yeah, jokes apart. See, we have certain parameters, and any firm that we choose to cover. So we gently see that how it's contributing to those particular parameters, and then we reach out to them. But the focus is also on those particular initiatives that have got less publicity or no publicity at all. While we have covered a lot of firms and startups which are doing good work and have a lot of media presence, but like primarily we focus on the less covered and uncovered stories. And yeah, so we have a set of criteria that we follow. There's a proper list, so we see all the parameters, those kind of things.
There's also one question on the in the chat section, and it's from Sparrow Automates, and the question is, what is your revenue model, sir? So the question is, what's your revenue model?
Okay, so like I mentioned, whatever news or whatever media you see, whatever stories you see, those are entirely unpaid. Nobody pays one bit of it. And if you go on the platform, there's no advertisement there as well. So that if, let's say, suppose tomorrow I have to say, for example, I have to criticize a particular application, and if that particular application or its founders or any associated business house is sponsoring my platform, so it might be kind of a sticking point, right? So whatever money comes in uLaunch comes from the other associated operations like skill development, which is our major focus again, and that cross subsidizes uLaunch and its efforts. So you won't call it a very money churning operation as such, but yeah, it's serving the purpose as of now.
Great. And you might have covered a lot of stories, like since you have worked in the field and talked to different entrepreneurs as well. What was the one story, like a success story you could say, that motivated you the most of any startup out there that you featured?
Okay, so see, there are a lot of stories that have taught me a lot of things, but one particular story that's very close to me is the one by China Eco Unified, Mr. Paris Aluja.
I guess, yeah, you weren't audible in bit. Now you are audible.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so one particular story that, if I have to choose one, so that's Mr. Paris Aluja from China Eco Unified, a conventional businessman, coming from a very well-off background, and he has no, well, he doesn't need to do anything. He's well off. Everything is, settled for him. But to go out of that comfort zone and work in a sector where you're a completely, newbie, you're a rookie, to learn everything from scratch, to struggle and, to innovate in an environment which is full of red tape. So what he did was, I'll just tell you in brief, he uses recycled plastics to make products that are stronger than concrete. So for example, his paver tiles are stronger than the concrete tiles. It's pretty cheap actually. So the kind of things he has done, and it's not just paver tiles. He started by that. He collaborated with CSIR laboratories. He has his own, patented technology and everything. But the kind of things he gave up, the effort he put in. So because I've known him, I spoke to him personally as well. So the kind of sacrifices he made and the kind of commitment he still has and the kind of optimism he still showcases each and every time you talk about work to him, and, his face glows up. And yeah, I could just see a lot of myself in him, and I could see that, sometimes I joke that, if it's not work, I'm not capable of talking about it. I'm not able to make small talk. But then if it's relevant stuff and he wants to create a difference, and he's one person, again, like I said, who does this out of love for the cause. And his fighting spirit is actually, you can see his fighting spirit recently when when there was this COVID wave. He was infected and his oxygen level went down to 60, imagine. And he's faced a lot of problems in professional and personal life, even otherwise, but he doesn't give up. He comes back stronger each time. So yeah.
That's great. Like coming on to your communication skills as well, as everyone could see that like you're a very good communicator. You are someone that I definitely look up to. Like when I want to get better at communication. So was it like only the on-field work, or like you talked back being in school, say joining clubs and all that, that basically made you have this amount of confidence, because you need confidence to speak in front of an audience, or like were you actually reading newspapers? So like how was it? How was that going?
So I'll be very honest with you. I'll be very honest. मैं बहुत बेशरम था. So no. So I remember class fourth. Class fourth. I was in a boys' school and we had this talent competition. And at that time, I still remember that "Ek Pal Ka Jeena" by Hrithik Roshan. I used to love that song. I couldn't dance. I could not dance. I participated in it. I participated in the talent competition in the dance section. I danced my heart out on the stage. I came back. My friends were laughing. I didn't care. And then the next year again, I participated in mono acting. I was very bad at it. Didn't help. Doesn't matter. But I think 3 years or 4 years continuously I did that. Seventh standard onwards, each time, if they had to find an anchor or anybody to host an event, teachers automatically came to me. And that sort of gave me some confidence. Obviously, I was a little conscious on stage, but then I started engaging more and more people. I started interacting with a lot of people. And when you become an office bearer at school level, by office bearer I mean prefects or the school captain, that kind of a thing. So you interact with a lot of people, and you see juniors looking up to you in some ways or the other, and then you try to push yourself even further. So that happened. And then back in college, I think the kind of exposure IEEE provided, my seniors were really good. So there was a lot of public speaking in that. Each time I used to go for a particular meet, quarterly meets or annual events, annual general meetings and all these things. But apart from that, yes, I had to do a lot of public speaking because when you're living in a very backward area, right? And imagine I am somebody who's lived in the Lalu regime wala Bihar. So I have seen a lot of poverty around, and you interact with a lot of people. So it's not just communication. You have to be very unequivocally meticulous in choosing your words. तो बहुत लोगों से बात किया, बहुत तरह से बात किया, बहुत गलती करी, and धीरे धीरे फिर ये डेवलप हो गया रिक्वायरमेंट प्लस बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट. मतलब this is my bread and butter.
And there's a lot of compliments by Shifali ma'am. She's saying it's always a pleasure to attend your session. Like she's listening, and she also says that he has great communication skills and is a gem of a person. I couldn't agree more. Like, yeah.
She's always been too kind. She's a gem of a human being, as you already know. Yeah, she's always kind.
What's your plan going forward? Like, how does the future for uLaunch looks like?
So, like I said, we are actually excited because the skill development thing is going good as of now. So in COVID, obviously, a lot of things were suspended. So what we are actually planning to do is collaborating with some of these niche startups. And ultimately, I think while the media part will operate parallelly, but along with it, a technology part, more like a research part, is also being set up. So yeah, I think I'm very optimistic about that particular front. We'll be interacting with a lot of innovative youngsters who have come up with a lot of new things. They want to work and learn a lot. So it's always nice to meet these people because I see that the newer generation is so much better than us in so many ways. They already know the things and take it for granted, for which was like a big news for me. So the growth is such so rapid actually, that these children actually serve as inspirations. So through this new effort wherein we'll be dealing directly with technology in some research capacity and operational capacity, I am looking forward to it. It's very exciting.
Great. There's one question that I have asked a lot of speakers. So is there anything you feel you could have done differently in the beginning? It could be, say, beginning of the college or like in school, that you got to learn about later on, that you felt that okay, if I would have maybe focused on say XYZ things maybe a little earlier, so I could have been better at say this thing. So are there any things or any thoughts on that?
See, I try to avoid this because retrospect में ना कुछ भी अच्छा लगता है. What ifs में, because even if you think that maybe अगर आप 100 on 100 मैथ्स में स्कोर करके आते हो, retrospect में तो फिर ये आप सोचोगे यार 1.5 घंटे में ही खत्म कर लेता मैं तो ये एग्जाम. Right, so there's always scope for improvement, and I overthink a lot. But what I do is that I always keep a small drawing board, and obviously I use mind maps a lot. So I have a tendency to go back and forth on every situation and see how I could have done it better. But specifically, if I have to say from the beginning, then I think maybe I think I should have waited a little bit upon, like, okay, one message that I would actually like to say is that one thing I don't regret, but I think I should have listened to my parents a little more.
Yeah, that's one thing that you that all of us actually realize later in life
Yeah.
at some point of time. And is there
Yes.
any other advice for young entrepreneurs out there who are still tinkering somewhere, thinking of ideas, and maybe trying to accomplish something?
Yeah, definitely. See, these are very exciting times, and I used to watch some series way long ago, and in that, this guy used to always say that there's a Chinese curse. One part of it says, "May you live in interesting times," and the other part of that curse was, "May you find what you're looking for." These are two Chinese curses, but trust me, you guys are living in very interesting times. And economically, yes, we have never been worse, I think. And there's a lot of unemployment, there's a lot of challenges economically, and as a society also we're facing very multidimensional challenges. But as a lot of people around us like to put it, आपदा को अवसर में बदलें, right? So every crisis is an opportunity, and that's true. And I think as far as entrepreneurship goes, the next 10 to 15 years belong to you guys. And the kind of ecosystem we are trying to work on, the kind of ecosystem the government is trying to work on as well, we can't just blame the government. They're doing whatever they can. So I think that would help a lot of unicorns to come up in the next decade, I feel. And I think अगर आप लोगों के पास idea है, just go for it. Be sensible, take calculated risks, read a lot, research a lot, but go for it, because that time is yours and it's not going to come back in the life of this country ever again.
Yeah. So these were all the questions from my side.
All right.
And yeah, like before like getting the live stream over, I'd like to thank you a lot for taking your time. Like you have always been a person that I have looked up to. I have said it a lot of times, but yeah, like it makes me happy that you joined today.
Hey, it's you. I always wanted to come. It's really nice talking to you all the time. In fact, talking to you teaches me a lot of things. It's always nice, and I like your mindset and I like your vision. So all the best to you, to Maven Talks, as well as to your future and college life, upcoming exams.
Yeah. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice talking to you. Bye bye.
Bye. Yeah, so this was the story of Mr. Haresh Singh, founder and CEO of uLaunch. Thank you to all the friends who joined today, Devansh, Karan, Shatakshi, Sparrow, Shifali ma'am, and people out there watching the channel. And let's see you tomorrow in another episode. So, goodbye.